Hey friends, this is Karen from Blue Rooster Farm, and today I have a wonderful recipe for you. If you like raspberries, if you like almonds, if you like coffee cakes, you are going to absolutely love this recipe. So if you want to see what we're making, stick around. I love to make coffee cakes. They're something that you can make the night before and have for breakfast. You can make them days before and put them in the freezer. And they're always handy when you have company. Well, today I'm going to share a recipe with you that is one of our family favorites. And we used to not make it that much because the almond paste was a little hard to find where we live. And if I did get to the grocery store in a town near us, I wouldn't remember to pick it up. So now that I've learned how to make my own almond paste, and you can see that video right here or here, I'll put a link there, we can have this one much more often, and it truly is a favorite. This is a raspberry marzipan coffee cake. Now, it is from, I believe this is Betty Crocker, maybe, a Betty Crocker cookbook. The reason I don't know is because I've lost the page, the cover. Let me tell you, you know when you find a recipe book that is in this bad of shape and it's stained throughout, you know that there are some favorite recipes of mine in here. And this one is one of them. And there's a picture right there. But of course, like usual, I didn't stick with the original recipe. I changed it up so it was even better. And that's the recipe I'm going to share with you today. This recipe is for a 9-inch squared pan by 2 inches deep. And it will fill that pan very high. I mean, there's a lot of batter in there. I'm going to double this recipe because this weekend we are needing to travel down to Springfield, and I want to take a pan for each side of the family. And so I am going to double this recipe and put it into different pans, and I'll show you which size pans I'm using. So I believe that a 9 by 13 and then an 8 by 8, a double recipe should cover this. A double recipe will also fill a nice deep 9 by 13 cake pan. It will fill it well. So I am going to give you the recipe for a single, a 9 by 9 by 2, which I think could even be a little bit bigger pan. But as I'm adding my ingredients, I am going to be adding double the amount. Okay, so I'll kind of give you both amounts. And then at the end of this video, you will see the recipe for a single batch, a 9 by 9 by 2. So I'm going to bring you down because there's a couple of steps. And the first step we're going to do is making the streusel. And that's a streusel for the center and the top. So I'll bring you down. So what we've got here is we've got some butter, cold butter, some white sugar, some flour, and some almonds. And these are slivered almonds. They're very thin. You could use chopped almonds too if you like. That would be fine. So what we're going to start off with is we're going to throw our flour in the bowl. And for a single recipe, you're going to use 1/3 cup of flour, just regular flour. So I've got 2/3 cup in here. For a single recipe, you're going to add 1/4 cup of sugar. I'm doubling it, so I've got 1/2 cup. And for a single recipe, you're going to add 1/2 stick of butter, 1/4 cup. But since I'm doubling it, I'm adding the whole thing, and that is 1/2 cup of butter. And so we are going to cut the flour and the sugar into the butter with a pastry cutter. And if you don't have a pastry cutter, you can use 2 knives, you can use your fingers. You just need to be careful not to get the flour too warm. You want to keep it in little pieces, not melted. So I'm going to real quickly get this in. And this isn't like you're doing a pie, so you don't have to have it really fine. You can have bigger chunks of butter. That's okay. Because what those pieces of butter will do is they'll just melt and they will create kind of a bubbling of sugar for the top. Now, if you like cinnamon, you could add a little bit of cinnamon here. If you like cinnamon in your streusels. I'm going to go ahead and keep it like we usually make it because I like the almond to stand out. Sometimes I will add some oatmeal, or not oatmeal, but oats, old-fashioned oats to this to make it more of a crumble, just to give it a little bit of a nutrient value in here, a little hardier and rustic. You could add coconut. Any of those things would be a good addition if you like them. Okay, so you can still see I have little tiny chunks of butter in there, but that's perfect, right? Now we're just going to add our almonds. We're going to mix that together, and this is our streusel. So I will set this aside. That part is done. Then I'm going to bring my mixer over, and we're going to start with the batter. I've brought my mixer over. Now, this does not have to be made with a mixer. You can do it by hand with a bowl and a spoon, or just a regular hand mixer. That's fine. I just absolutely love my KitchenAid, and I use it all the time. It mixes things so quickly for me. So I'm always going to use this. And I know I see a lot of people on different YouTube channels saying, oh, I just didn't want to get my KitchenAid mixer out. Well, I have mine on my counter because I use it daily. And if I have to pull it out, there's probably a chance I wouldn't use it as much. So if there's something in your kitchen that you would like to use more often, put it on your counter where you can have access to it and you will use it all the time. So this is what I'm using to mix mine up with. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to cream the butter and the sugar together. And so I have, the recipe calls for 1/2 stick or 1/4 cup of softened butter. And again, real butter. I am using a whole stick, 1/2 cup, because I'm making a double batch. So then we're going to add, recipe says 3/4 cup of sugar. I am adding 1.5 cups of sugar. Then we're going to see if we can cream this together. And that was for just about a minute. And all it's done is mix the sugar and the butter until there's no butter lumps in there. Now we're going to add the egg. 1 egg for a single recipe, 2 eggs for a double. And I went ahead and just gave them a little whisk to help it out. We're going to mix this together. The next thing we're going to do is add our flavorings. The recipe calls for 1 teaspoon of vanilla, but I'm going to use 2 because I'm doubling. And then I have modified this recipe so that we are going to be adding some almond flavoring too. And we're going to add a 1/2 teaspoon for a single, a full teaspoon for a double. And while we're doing that, we're also going to go ahead and add our salt. We need a 1/2 teaspoon for the single, and I'm going to do a teaspoon for a double. And we'll mix that together. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to add the flour, and this is all-purpose flour, and a single batch is 2 cups, double batch is 3 cups. I'm sorry, 4 cups. Let me figure that math out there. Okay. And before I mix, I'm also going to add my baking powder and my baking soda. And here's something that I changed on this recipe too. I'm using buttermilk instead of milk. They used milk, but it's so much better with buttermilk. So I'm going to add a little bit of baking powder and then also baking soda, because whenever you add buttermilk, you want to make sure you have the acidity of the baking soda. So if you're doing a single batch, you're going to add 2 teaspoons of baking powder. If you're doing the double batch, you're going to add 4 teaspoons of baking powder. And you're also going to be adding 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda for a single batch, 1 teaspoon for a full batch. So I am going to add, since I'm doing a double, we know that 3 teaspoons is 1 tablespoon, so there's 3 teaspoons. And I've been avoiding my teaspoon because I had used it for the flavoring, but I think it's okay. And then 1 more teaspoon. That's 4 teaspoons of baking powder and 1 teaspoon of baking soda. And I'm going to be putting the recipe that I use in the notes. So the one that we're using right here, except a single batch. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and then add the buttermilk with this and mix it all together. In fact, I think I'm going to just kind of mix that baking powder and baking soda to give it a good start so that it doesn't all get in one space. So let's go ahead and add our buttermilk. And you're going to add a cup of buttermilk for a single batch. Double batch is 2 cups of buttermilk. Now, if you don't have buttermilk, you can take regular milk and you can add lemon juice or vinegar, about a tablespoon per cup. You can also use milk. I sometimes use milk and a little sour cream and then a little bit of lemon and or vinegar, just to give it kind of the same consistency. You can use yogurt. Those are all good substitutions. If you use the yogurt, I'm not sure about the acidity. I'd go ahead and add some lemon juice or vinegar just to make sure it reacts correctly with the baking soda. But those are all good substitutes for buttermilk, because I know a lot of people don't keep buttermilk on the shelves. So we're going to mix this up. Now, I don't want to overbeat it. That's why I got it incorporated and then just real quickly went on high and stopped, because I don't want to make it tough. Now, here we're going to add raspberries. Now, in the original recipe, that's good. In the original recipe, they put the raspberries in layers. I like the raspberries in my batter. It just gives it more flavor and just tastes really good. So I'm going to use the raspberries in the batter. I'm actually going to go ahead and take this off the stand because I'm going to fold in my raspberries. And my raspberries are frozen. They're the ones that we picked from last year. We have lots of blooms on our plants this year, so we should be good of getting more raspberries this year. I'm hoping to make a couple more raspberry recipes for you, and one of them is a recipe for raspberry gooseberry jelly. And I'll tell you, not too many people know that this recipe, because I can't find it anywhere online. It's a recipe my mom used to make, and it is delicious. And a lot of people don't know what gooseberries are. If you live in the Midwest, you probably know that they grow wild in the woods. And a lot of people have them in their yards. They buy the shrubs. And we'll learn more a little bit about gooseberries if I get the chance to make gooseberry raspberry jelly for you. Okay, I've removed my mixer so we can have a little more room here. And you can see that the baking powder and the baking soda are starting to work because there's little air pockets in there. And my berries are a little bit frozen still, which is fine because that way they won't color my batter as much. It will cause me to cook this a little bit longer because those frozen berries will need a little more time to heat up. I do have several that are sticking together. If you don't know how to freeze berries, it's really easy. You just rinse your berries, strain them, let them dry off a little bit in the air, then put them in Ziploc bags and freeze. And you can pull them out anytime and make all sorts of desserts with them or recipes, and even eating them fresh. Another recipe that I hope to share with you soon is a raspberry fluff recipe that I never hear the recipe for it, so it's a very special family one that we love. And I think I'll be sharing that with you soon. All right, so I don't want to overmix. I've got these mixed. Now I'm going to get my pans and I'm going to spray them. You do need to grease your pans. And since I'm using these aluminum foil disposable pans, I always use a cookie sheet underneath them. That way it keeps them from getting too brown on the bottom, and it helps me put them in and pull them out a lot easier. I'm just going to bring this one over here for now. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to take half of this batter, or about half, and we are going to put a layer on the bottom. Those raspberries look delicious. We have both the deep purple and the light purple. They are so good. Great for cereals, oatmeal, and of course baking. We have one layer. Now we are going to take half of our streusel and we are going to sprinkle a little bit right here that didn't come to the corner. Want to make sure the whole thing is covered. There we go. Now there's nothing healthy about this recipe except for the raspberries and the almonds. So this is a delicious breakfast, but of course it's not for those who are trying to watch their sugar or their calories. But if you do a little bit here and there, it's okay, in moderation. Now we're going to take our almond paste, and we made this in another video, and I'll try to put the card right here or here on one of these sides. And I'm going to slice thinly. And we're going to layer these slices onto our first layer of batter. Then we're going to do another layer. And you can see that this is way too much probably for a 13 by 9 inch pan alone. So if you double it, plan on doing a 13 by 9 plus another smaller pan. And my laundry sounds like it's done in there. Sorry about that. And at this point, we are just going to smooth this batter out. And I'm just going to use a little bit of spray on there to help from getting it all over. And remember, when this cooks, it's going to puff up and things are going to melt together and it's going to be great. And if you find that your middles of your cakes and coffee cakes are sticking up high in the middle, make sure you push some of that batter toward the edges where it cooks a little quicker, and that will help keep your coffee cake a little flatter. Just giving this a real nice smooth over, getting everything covered. It's okay if a little bit peeks out, no problem. It will cook up, melt together, and look beautiful. And again, the original recipe had you layer the berries with the streusel, but we added them to our batter because I really think it gives the batter a great flavor. All right, so that looks good. Then we're just going to finish it off with the rest of the streusel topping. I'm going to leave a little bit in there because I'm going to add some, and I'm going to cut these up into smaller pieces. In fact, I think I'll kind of cube them. So let's see what we can do here. Just kind of little cubes like this. You could add some raspberries to the top too if you like. That would make it good. This piece that I have left, I'll wrap it and put it in the freezer if I'm not going to be using it right away. If I think I'm going to be using it right away, I can wrap it and put it in the refrigerator. And it can stay in there for about probably a week. It does have the egg white in it, so that's why you want to be a little careful with that. Now we'll take the rest of this, and that way we'll give that almond paste a little cover. The almond paste is going to brown up really yummy on the top here. And it's going to be hard to resist pulling it off and eating it. All right, so these two are going to go into an oven that is set for 350 degrees. And for the 9x9x2, it says that you are to bake about 50 minutes or until the toothpick inserted in the center comes out clean. Serve warm or let stand until cool. Now, whenever you stick a toothpick in, you might get where the raspberry is. So try to find a spot that doesn't have a raspberry. You can usually tell by touching on the top. If it springs back, it's done. But just watch it. This little pan should cook a little faster. This one right here will probably be a little longer than 50 minutes. So I'll just keep an eye on them and see how they do. One thing it also said is you can vary your fruit. You can use, any kind of berries. Blueberries would be great. blackberries. You could do cherries. We've used cranberries before for the holidays. You could also use chocolate chips, or you could use chocolate chips with this and have a raspberry chocolate chip. That would be very decadent. That sounds good. But this is the way we like it, so we're going to make it this way. And I will bring you back when it comes out of the oven. My microphone was messing up during this part, so I'm going to go ahead and do a voiceover for the rest of this video. The coffee cakes just came out of the oven. They're looking good. And we are going to make a powdered sugar glaze. And so I've got in a bowl some powdered sugar. And depending on what size you're making will help to determine how much powdered sugar you will need. I probably had in this bowl right here a cup and a half to 2 cups of powdered sugar. And as you can see, I've just added some vanilla, and now I'm adding a bit of almond. And you don't need too much of that. Then we're going to add some milk. Now you have to be really careful when adding milk to your powdered sugar because a little goes a long way. So I'm going to add probably a couple tablespoons there. And then I'm going to stir it. And if I need to add more, I can. It looks like I do. So another couple tablespoons. And at this point, it's a pretty thick icing, and I need this to be able to drizzle onto the coffee cake. So I'm adding another tablespoon or so, and again stirring. If you accidentally add too much milk, you can always add more powdered sugar. It still looks like it's a little thick. It won't quite drizzle, but I'll stir it up real good to make sure. So I'm going to add just a bit more. It won't take much. And I'm stirring that in, and that looks like it's getting pretty creamy. Let's see how it runs off the spoon. Yeah, that looks good. So we're going to take this icing and we are going to drizzle it over the hot coffee cake. I like to do mine when it's still hot. It will harden up after it cools. And we're not doing any kind of pattern or anything. We are just drizzling all over the coffee cake. And we're not concerned about it being a perfect looking coffee cake because that's not what's important. What's important is how it tastes. So let's just drizzle some of this on. Of course, you don't need any icing and drizzle on this coffee cake, but we're just adding it to add just a little special touch. Often we will make a coffee cake and we will serve it warm, either warm it up in the microwave or in an oven, cover it up and warm it up in the oven. But we'll also maybe put a pat of butter on it to make it really delicious. But this is going to be super moist and full of flavor, and I can't wait to taste it. Now, we won't be serving this right away. It will be going with us tomorrow, so it will probably actually be 2 days before we eat this, and it will be fine. If you are going to be making it ahead several days, this freezes really well. You can freeze it with the drizzle on, or you can wait and add that after you take it out of the freezer and it has thawed. But it will freeze really well, and it'll taste just perfectly fresh if you warm it up. I really hope you get a chance to try this recipe. It is wonderful. If you do get a chance to try it, please leave in the comments what you think. And as always, if you like what you're seeing, please like, share, and subscribe. It really helps my videos get out to more people, and I would really appreciate it. I hope you have a wonderful week, and I will see you soon.